Wow, aren't we lucky to have heard that original recording of an unknown author in 1601? Mesmerising and inspiring? I think so. Well, hello and welcome back to the final couplet with me, Theo Cowan. We're back again and ready for more Shakespeare. I, for one, have enjoyed the last few sonnets. It feels like Shakespeare's maybe losing his mind a little bit. And I'm sort of excited to see whether he gets back on track or if the sonnets get weirder and weirder. I do certainly think that he could have done with a little bit of therapy. And I don't know if that was something that was around back in the 1600s, but I think he could have benefited from it. So and couldn't we all? And if I had an ad space right now, I'd probably advertise some sort of online therapy thing, but I don't. So that's just a general chat about therapy. One last thing to note before we dive into Sonnet 22 is that it appears everyone on the road that I live on is having building works done today and for the rest of time. So if you do hear knocking, I mean, I'm literally just watching a guy outside my window just hammering something. Don't know what it is. It's not even on a house. So I have no idea what he's up to. But if you do hear some building work in the background, then apologies, and I will try and get it sorted. I'll try and get everyone to stop doing building works for the next podcast. I'll just submit that to the council. All right, let's dive in, shall we? Sonnet 22. My glass shall not persuade me I am old, so long as youth and thou are of one date. But when in thee time's furrows I behold, then look I death my days should expiate. For all that beauty that doth cover thee is but the seemly raiment of my heart, which in thy breast doth live, as thine in me. How can I then be elder than thou art? O therefore, love, be of thyself so wary as I, not for myself, but for thee will, bearing thy heart, which I will keep so chary as tender nurse her babe from faring ill. Presume not on thy heart when mine is slain. Thou gavest me thine, not to give back again. That's an interesting one, Shakespeare. I mean, from first impressions, it seems like he's talking about swapping hearts with someone. A little lover's heart transplant. So interesting to see how that plays out. Let's not think about it too much now. Let's just dive in and work out what the hell Shakespeare is on about in Sonnet 22. So we start with, my glass shall not persuade me I am old, so long as youth and thou are of one date. And of course, if you remember from previous podcasts, glass means mirror. Well done for remembering. So here he's sort of saying, my mirror will not persuade me that I'm old. So my mirror is not going to tell me that I'm old, so long as youth and thou are of one date. So long as you are young, so long as you remain young. But when in thee time's furrows I behold, then look I death my days should expiate. Weird one that, look I death. He's forgotten how to speak, poor Shakespeare. Look I death. Come on, that's crazy. That is crazy. And I don't believe that was how people wrote at the time. I just think that's being weird. But here he's essentially saying, but if I see that you times furrows, so that's wrinkles, if I see that you've got wrinkles, then I'll know that I'm about to die, that death is round the bloody corner if I see you getting wrinkles, which is a lot of pressure to put on that poor bastard that he's reading this to. Then he goes on to say, for all that beauty that doth cover thee is but the seemly raiment of my heart. Now this one is an interesting one. I think raiment is clothes, so clothing, so seemly, nice, lovely clothing. So all the beauty that you've got is like lovely clothing over my heart. It's like a little jacket and trousers for my heart. Is that it? I don't know. It sounds good though. Which in thy breast doth live as thine in mine. So he's carrying on from the last line, bringing the heart. So he's saying, my heart lives in your breast and your heart lives in mine. They are one. How can I then be elder than thou art? It's a simple question, isn't it? He's saying, if I've got your heart in my body, how can I be older than you? I don't really know why he's asking the question, because he made up the whole thing. So, what is this, a stream of consciousness? Oh, therefore, love, be of thyself so wary, as I, not for myself, but for thee will, bearing thy heart, which I will keep so chary, as tender nurse her babe from faring ill. Sorry, that's quite a big chunk, but I think it all sort of means one thing, which is, so you look after that heart that you've got, because that's actually my heart, just as I will look after your heart. So chary meaning carefully, so carefully, and as carefully as a nurse would look after a baby, so as not to let the baby die or be ill. And now we get to the final couplet. Presume not on thy heart when mine is slain. Thou gavest me thine, not to give back again. That's a great final couplet, isn't it? He's saying just don't expect to get your heart back from me, because remember when you gave me your heart. So don't expect to get that back when my heart is dead in you, because you gave it to me forever. All right? And it never to be given back. Remember, we made that promise, never to get it back. So that is my heart now. Well, it's your heart, but it's in my body. So have a bit of that. I'm so pleased that this is as mad as some of the previous ones. He really is losing his goddamn mind. I think it's sort of a love poem, isn't it? But also sort of a heart swap that Shakespeare's invented that doesn't seem to be consensual at all. He's saying, I've got your heart now, you've got mine, so that's done. The deal's done. Don't ask any questions. The deal's done. I've said it. So I've now got your heart, and don't expect to get it back. You're never going to get that back. So I don't know how I would feel if I was on a date and someone said that to me. They said, I've now got your heart in my body and mine's in yours, and no swap backs. Sucks to be you. Maybe it's just Shakespeare sort of working out what works with his lovers, what works. Maybe the old heart swap line goes down well back in the 1500s. Maybe it does. Not for me to say, but one for historians to look into. So that's a free bit of research for you if you're a historian of that period. Thank me later. Right, let's put this to our story. Now, if you remember in the last episode, Shakespeare had gone to the Swan Bar and Grill for the after party of Romeo and Juliet, and he's seen Ben Jonson, his good friend, and David, his sort of wannabe lover, chatting together. He got a bit jealous, and he read Sonnet 21 that was sort of saying, I'm actually better than loads of other poets, right in front of Ben Jonson, which is sort of not very tactful, is it? So let's find out what happens next, shall we? Shakespeare finished reading Sonnet 21 to David. Ben Jonson was also next to David, but it wasn't really for him. And David looks up at Shakespeare and says, wow, that was weird. Why did you have to talk about other poets, especially with Ben right here? And Ben looked at Shakespeare and said, Shakespeare, you need to chill the hell out, dude. That was weird. That was actually really weird what you just read. Like, why are you slagging off other poets? And I feel like it was kind of aimed at me, which is not okay, my dude. Not cool at all. Look at that. Look at that for poetry. Not cool at all. I'll put that in one of my sonnets, actually. And don't steal that, because I know you like to steal things. And Shakespeare says, well, you know what? I don't want to be with you anyway, David. You can be with Ben. I don't care. I'm free loving. There's loads of people that I could be with. Not a problem. Look, just take a look. I can have anyone I want in this place. In the Swan Bar and Grill. Anyone. And Ben and David laugh and say, okay, Shakespeare. And then Ben says, look, I hope you don't mind, Bill, but I was thinking of inviting some of the cast and crew back to mine for a bit of an after party. And Shakespeare says, oh, I was going to say maybe that everyone could come back to mine. And Ben says, well, I've got a much bigger place than yours, and I just figured everyone would want to come back and check out my pad. And Shakespeare says, fine. And so Ben gets up and says, everyone, we're all going back to mine for an after party. And everyone cheered, and the cast and crew picked up their bags and coats and made for the door. On their way, they stopped at an off-license and bought some tinnies of Foster's and Carlsberg. But of course, back then it was called Carlsborg. And they trundled along to Ben Jonson's house. As soon as they arrived, Shakespeare picked up a big bottle of mead and downed it straight away. He was trying to drown his sorrows. He knew that he'd messed up with his last sonnet, and David was falling for Ben Jonson, his frenemy. He picked up another bottle and downed that too. A third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth. On his seventh bottle of mead, he was almost blackout drunk by that point. A few hours had gone by and a lot of the cast had left. Shakespeare, bumping into bits of furniture, stumbled up the stairs and into Ben Jonson's room. And he saw Ben Jonson in bed with David. And he went, oh no, Jesus Christ, really? And Ben said, what's the problem, Shakespeare? And Shakespeare said, well, I fancy David. It's pretty bloody clear from my poems and stuff. And I think I told you, like, last week. What the hell? And David says, look, Shakespeare, it's nothing personal. I'm young, I'm free, I'm cool. Just let me have fun. And Shakespeare said, yeah, whatever. I'll find someone else. I don't even care. I actually don't care about any of this. And he opened the door to leave, but it was actually the door to the closet. And he walked in and didn't realise for a couple of minutes, and then walked out again and said, sorry, it's the closet. And then left by the actual door, stumbled down the stairs and into the kitchen. And sat there in front of him was the actor who played Juliet. Because, of course, in those days, it was a man that played the women's parts. And Shakespeare said, what are you still doing here? And the actor said, oh, I don't know. I fancied another cast member and they left, and now I'm just drinking my sorrows. And Shakespeare said, hey, cheers to that. And he looked into the actor who played Juliet's eyes and thought, this actor's actually quite attractive. I hadn't noticed before. And he said, hey, I've actually been thinking of telling you something. And the actor says, oh yeah, really? And he said, yeah, I'm going to improvise a poem. I'm going to improvise a sonnet for you. And the actor said, wow, okay, are you in the right mental state for that? And Shakespeare said, I love you. I love you. You're beautiful. And then he says, let me read you this. Sonnet 22. I'm not gonna let my mirror tell me I'm old as long as you remain young. But when I see you with wrinkles, I'll know that death is round the corner. All the beauty that covers you is like lovely clothing over my heart. My heart lives in you and yours in me. So how can I be older than you? Therefore, my love, look after yourself as I will look after myself. Not for myself, but for you, because your heart is inside me, and I will protect it as carefully as a nurse with a baby. Don't expect to get your heart back when mine is dead, though. You gave me yours, never to be given back. Wow. It makes a lot of sense, this one, if Shakespeare was indeed drunk. Or high. If you remember some news stories a while back, that they found some doobie, some weed in Shakespeare's back garden, which explains a hell of a lot, to be honest. Some ancient doob just growing in Shakespeare's garden. Crazy stuff. I don't think it was growing. I think it was just old. Just some old doob. But that does make a lot of sense. And I like this one. It was weird. It was odd. And I'm desperate to know if it worked. I mean, if the person was like, wow, that's beautiful. Or if they were like, what the hell are you talking about? But the beauty of this is we'll never know. We can only guess. And my guess is they thought, what the hell are you on about? Anyway, until next week, bye!